I want to talk about Stonehenge.
Stonehenge is like a letter from the deep past. It's there, it's physical, you can't ignore it. But what does it mean?
So Stonehenge is very interesting in that it evolves over a very long period of time. The first thing that goes up at Stonehenge is not there anymore. It's the 56 holes that today are known as the Albury Circle.
For thousands of years, Stonehenge has kept its secrets locked inside massive stones. No one knew what's hidden beneath, or why ancient people went to such extremes to build it, not until recently. AI 3D scans have finally cracked the code, revealing strange patterns, buried objects, and mysterious shapes inside the stones, things no human eye has ever seen. These discoveries hint at details that challenge everything we thought we knew about the monument. Some of the results are so shocking because they do not align with old history books and theories. Could this mean Stonehenge was more than just a temple or calendar? Or did ancient builders leave a hidden message? Join us as we decode the mysteries of the Stonehenge that have baffled humans for a very long time. A rising in the silent plains. At the heart of southwestern England, on a high grassland called Salisbury Plain, a very old group of stones stands in unity. People from around the world know these stones and have studied them for centuries. The origin of the name for this place comes from ancient language roots meaning something like stones held up or hung in the air. This idea is still alive today when visitors look at the tall pieces of rock standing upright with horizontal stones placed across the top of them. This circle of stones was not set down in a single moment. What exists today is the product of work done over many long years by many groups of people. The first visible part of what we call Stonehenge was made when prehistoric builders dug a circular bank and ditch in the earth. This earthwork is very old and predates the stones themselves. Once this simple enclosure existed, other changes slowly followed. In later periods, wooden posts and then stone settings replaced or altered parts of the original earthwork. Scientists have found that the stones now standing were put up in different stages between about 3000 BC and 1600 BC. During this long span of time, builders added circles of smaller stones, tall upright stones, and horizontal stones that rest on top. The largest stones seen today are sandstone blocks that were moved from quarries tens of miles away and carefully raised. Smaller stones came from groups of rock in southwest Wales and were brought over great distances before being set into place. Work on this site changed as the needs and beliefs of people changed. This monument was not an isolated structure. The land around it was also shaped by people for many centuries. Long burial mounds appeared across the plain, where people laid their deceased to rest. Causewayed earthworks, which are long winding ditches with banks, began to appear nearby. Farther north, a large linear enclosure known as a cursus was dug. This long, narrow earthwork shows that groups of people were able to organize and work together over large distances and ongoing time periods. Long before these earthworks and the stones themselves, earlier people were active in this same location. In an area under what used to be the Stone Circle car park, archaeologists found deep pits from around 8000 BC that once held tall pine posts. Some of these posts stood in a nearly straight line from east to west. Over many centuries, the wood rotted away, but the size and direction of the holes show that people long ago chose this land for important reasons, possibly linked to marking time or observing the daylight. Not far from the future Stone Circle site, another place called Blickmead provided fresh water year-round. This spring attracted people who lived, made tools, hunted, and cooked there for thousands of years. Charred remains of food and tools show that hunters and gatherers returned again and again to this spring. The constant water may have made this a central camp where families and groups stayed for long seasons, and it became linked to the wider landscape that later builders modified. The stones and earthworks were arranged in ways that connected to the sky. The main entrance to the stone circle points toward where the sun rises on the longest day of the year and where it sets on the shortest day. This suggests that those who designed the layout knew about the movement of the sun and thought it mattered for their lives or ceremonies. Many other monuments from the same period also show interest in the patterns of sunlight and the seasons, linking these large constructions to how people measured time. The area around the stones also changed as forest land was cleared by people in the early Neolithic period. Hunter-gatherer life slowly gave way to farming communities that planted crops and tended animals. This new way of life brought larger social groups who could gather labor to dig earthworks and erect massive stones. Each generation added something new, and the whole complex became a wide ceremonial landscape where land and sky, life and death were marked by many hands over a very long time. But even more interesting was what was found when the stones were scanned. Secrets in the stone. Stonehenge is one of the most famous ancient monuments in the world. It stands on a plain in southern England and has huge upright stones in a ring. People have been puzzled by Stonehenge for hundreds of years because it was built thousands of years ago, and we still do not know exactly why it was built or how people moved the giant stones. In the last 2 decades, new technology has changed the way archaeologists study Stonehenge. New scanning tools were developed and used at Stonehenge, and experts began to see things they never saw before. The first scanning work in the early 2000s was done using 3D laser scanning. These are special machines that send out hundreds of thousands of laser points to measure the exact shape of a surface. The resulting data are collections of tiny points called a point cloud. These points show the surface of the stones in extreme detail, down to parts of a millimeter. The data are turned into 3D models that can be rotated, lit, and studied on a computer screen. These early laser scans revealed very faint carvings and marks on Stonehenge that were nearly invisible with the naked eye. In one of the first laser scanning projects, archaeologists found ancient carvings of axes on one of the large standing stones. These axe carvings are not easy to see even if you stand right next to the stone, but when the scanner recorded the surface and computer software enhanced the images, the axe shapes appeared clearly. These carvings are believed to date from the Bronze Age and are about 4,000 years old. Discoveries like these showed that Stonehenge was not just a circle of stones, it also holds artwork that was meant to be seen by the people who made it or visited it long ago. Later projects went even further. Around 2011, English Heritage, the organization that cares for Stonehenge, commissioned a very high-resolution scanning survey of all the visible faces of the stones. This created the most accurate 3D digital model of Stonehenge ever made, capturing not only the stones, but also the surrounding ground. These digital models are so detailed that experts can now monitor small changes in the stones over time. They can also create animations or fly-through visualizations that help people see the monument from perspectives that are hard to experience in real life. One of the most important real results from the laser scanning was the discovery of ancient graffiti and tool marks. A complete 3D survey revealed many little carvings of axes, daggers, and other symbols, some added long after the stones were first erected. These marks show that people over different historical periods interacted with Stonehenge in unique ways. Laser scans also confirmed that the stones were laid out to align with the sunrise on the summer solstice and the sunset on the winter solstice, which supports the long-standing belief that Stonehenge was an astronomical calendar or ritual site. In addition to scanning technology on the stones themselves, archaeologists used LiDAR, light detection, and ranging, scanning from aircraft to map the landscape around Stonehenge. LiDAR can show ground features that are hard to see from the surface, such as buried ditches, ancient roadways, or slight changes in terrain. The LiDAR data help archaeologists understand that Stonehenge was part of a much larger prehistoric landscape, including other structures, burial mounds, and pathways that connected them. However, the mystery of Stonehenge wasn't just on the surface alone. The hidden underground map. For many years, people thought Stonehenge was just a strange circle of giant stones standing on a flat field. But in the last 2 decades, new high-tech maps and underground surveys have completely changed how scientists see the whole area. Today, experts do not just study the visible stones. They are also exploring what lies beneath the ground and all around Stonehenge, hidden from plain sight. These discoveries have extended our understanding of the ancient people who lived and worked there, and how they created not just a monument, but an entire ceremonial landscape. One of the most important efforts for this new understanding is the Stonehenge Hidden Landscapes Project. Teams led by the University of Birmingham and other research groups have spent years scanning the ground around Stonehenge with tools that can see underground without digging. These tools include magnetometers, ground-penetrating radar, electromagnetic induction sensors, and earth-resistant surveys. When data from these tools is combined, it allows archaeologists to create detailed maps of what lies beneath the soil, including pits, walls, structures, and buried monuments that weren't visible on the surface. This work has revealed unknown remains and features spread across many square miles of the landscape. One of the discoveries scientists made was burial mounds and ritual monuments that were hidden underground for thousands of years. Many of these are dated to the same time period when Stonehenge was in its most active use. Remote sensing showed that some of these features formed part of what might have once been shrines or ceremonial structures, shaped in circular layouts that probably had special meaning for prehistoric societies. In the same project, researchers also uncovered structures connected with a massive ancient site known as Durrington Walls, only about a mile from Stonehenge. Durrington Walls is much larger in size than Stonehenge itself, forming one of the biggest prehistoric earthworks in Britain. Geophysical data has shown that this superhenge used to have many giant wooden posts or stones placed around it. They may have stood like a huge circle of standing stones or timber posts, possibly reaching 3 meters high. Another surprising find from these surveys relates to seemingly simple prehistoric pits that spread across the landscape in specific patterns. Some of the pits are up to 10 meters wide and roughly 5 meters deep, and they form a huge circle over a mile across near Durrington Walls. This discovery of massive pits has surprised archaeologists because it suggests highly organized planning and labor. The pits seem too evenly spaced and coordinated to be random holes. Instead, they probably had a purpose such as marking sacred space or serving as part of a ritual boundary around the henge. Beyond pits and structures, high-resolution remote sensing data has also revealed buried features that point to other activities long before Stonehenge was built. Surveys have mapped soil variations and patterns that show people were using the area around Stonehenge as early as 10,000 years ago, in the Mesolithic period. One example is a large pit over 4 meters wide and 2 meters deep that dates back to hunter-gatherer activity thousands of years before the stones were erected. Stonehenge was never meant to stand alone. It was part of a broader social and ceremonial setting. Although early research painted Stonehenge as a single monument, possibly built for astronomical reasons or religious rites, the Hidden Landscapes Project and subsequent studies show that prehistoric communities may have created a network of places, rather than one isolated landmark. This network probably developed gradually over thousands of years and might reflect beliefs, rituals, and social structures. Yet the question remains, why exactly was Stonehenge built? Circle of Unity. Understanding the purpose that the Stonehenge served has been the most complicated part of its history. Early investigators guessed it might be a temple for the dead, a calendar for tracking the seasons, or a place of healing. With each generation of research, scientists learned more, and the story kept changing. Today's experts work with huge amounts of data, advanced tools, and many connected lines of evidence, from burial studies to geological signatures, that suggest Stonehenge was much more than a circle of stones standing on a plain in southern England. Early in its scientific study, archaeologists discovered that the site was used for burial long before the Great Stone Circle was built. Earlier work uncovered cremated remains from as far back as 3000 BCE, and radiocarbon dating showed that people were burying their deceased in the ditches and Aubrey holes during the monument's first stages, and the burial phase may have continued for centuries. This established the idea that Stonehenge was not just a monument, but also a place associated with death and remembrance in early Neolithic Britain. As archaeological technologies developed, research extended to examine the connections between Stonehenge and surrounding landscapes. The Stonehenge Riverside Project investigated how Stonehenge related to nearby features such as Durrington Walls, Woodhenge, the River Avon, and the ritual pathway known as the Avenue. The project uncovered many new elements, including a previously unknown stone circle called Blue Stonehenge at the edge of the River Avon, suggesting that Stonehenge was part of a multi-site complex of monuments connected by cultural and ceremonial ties. One leading modern interpretation supported by the Riverside Project is that Stonehenge may have played a role in unifying the peoples of ancient Britain. Research indicates that the monument's stones came from many distant regions, each chosen and transported deliberately. Scholars believe that by gathering stones from across distant lands, the people who built Stonehenge might have created a symbol of unity and shared identity among different communities. In this sense, Stonehenge could have served as a shared sacred ground, bringing together groups from across Britain to celebrate relationships with ancestors and celestial events. This idea of unity goes hand in hand with demographic and burial data. It has been shown that people buried in the Stonehenge landscape did not all come from the local area. Some remains belong to individuals who grew up far from where they were buried, possibly bringing different cultural traditions and knowledge with them. This strengthens the interpretation that Stonehenge was a gathering place for many regions and may have served as a central hub for festivals, rites of passage, or shared ceremonies involving large numbers of people. Another aspect of the monument's purpose lies in its alignment with astronomical events. The stones are positioned so that on the summer solstice, the sun rises in a particular alignment through the heel stone, and on the winter solstice, the sun sets in a complementary position. This alignment suggests that the builders had a sophisticated understanding of solar cycles, and that the monument may have served as a solar temple or calendar, marking the passage of time and helping ancient people track seasonal changes that were critical for agriculture and ritual. Elsewhere in Britain, a similar connection between wooden posts and the sky has been found. At Warren Field in Aberdeenshire, archaeologists uncovered what may be the world's oldest lunisolar calendar. It was a structure designed to track time by observing the midwinter solstice, ensuring the calendar could be corrected each year. Other sites in Scandinavia, built later, show a similar pattern. These discoveries link Stonehenge's early posts to a wider tradition of building monuments that tied the land to the movements of the sun and moon. Beyond Stonehenge itself, the recent confirmation of a massive ring of man-made pits and landscape features expands our view of the site's purpose. Studies reported late in 2025 verified that these pits were dug and shaped by Neolithic communities over 4,000 years ago. The precision and scale of these features suggest a high degree of social organization and planning, and that the monument's purpose extended into the very design of the surrounding land. Some researchers also propose that specific features within the monument had multiple layered meanings over time. For example, while the solstice alignments give it an astronomical function, oral traditions and local lore, although much later and not strictly scientific, also imbue the site with symbolic and mythological meaning. Ancient communities may have seen the monument as a meeting point between earth and sky, life and death, community and lineage. This complex symbolic tapestry shows how deeply interconnected the physical structure of Stonehenge was with spiritual and ceremonial beliefs. Modern analysis also explores the idea that stone sourcing was not only functional, but symbolic. Some theories suggest that certain stones were chosen not simply because they were available, but because of their acoustic properties or other cultural significance. Particular rocks that made distinct sounds when struck may have held special meaning in prehistoric rituals, possibly associated with healing or spiritual communication. While not all scholars fully agree on these interpretations, they point to the range of possibilities that ancient peoples may have considered important when selecting materials for large monuments. As scientific tools and archaeological methods continue to improve, our picture of Stonehenge's purpose becomes more diversified and complex. What once might have been seen as a solitary stone circle has grown into a multifaceted ceremonial landscape shaped by rituals, social integration, astronomical observation, and deep cultural meaning. Though the complete story of its purpose will likely never be fully known, evidence from multiple angles paints a picture of a monument that was at the heart of a vast and meaningful cultural world in ancient Britain. If you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe, and also click the next video shown on your screen.